In this video, we'll be running the revertible photo update example from the Fotahub device SDK for ESP32. The revertible example is an enhanced version of the simple example. It demonstrates how a firmware update can automatically revert itself to the previous version in case that something is wrong with the new one. The firmware over-the-air update procedure gets triggered and works in the same way as in the simple example up to the point where the new firmware version gets activated. Right after starting the new firmware version, a built-in self-test procedure is launched. Only when the latter completes successfully, the new firmware version is confirmed and becomes definite. In the opposite case, the previous firmware version is restored. In the very last step, you will observe the same result and a very similar serial monitor output as with the simple example in case the built-in self-test succeeds. The revertible example implements only a very simple self-test stop, which returns a positive or negative result on a pseudo-random basis. You can see demo photo update self-test.c for details. The firmware update carried out in this example may succeed and remain in place or fail and be reverted to the previous version depending on how it goes. To see both scenarios happening, just run the simple example multiple times. You can also force either of them by setting the simulated activation success rate constant in demo photo update self-test header file to 100 or 0. We will force the failure scenario by setting the simulated activation success rate constant to 0. You can see that the new firmware version initiates the reversion of the firmware update. The board is restarted another time, and the previous firmware version is resumed.